And I was told, she's coming home, don't worry, she's coming home, it'll all be okay. I actually had called the radio station and requested, I don't know if you remember this song, This Dates Me, but Endless Love for my mom. And I said, Judy Henderson, and they were like, what? You know, who'd you say? And I said, Judy Henderson. And they said, oh. And then the next thing I heard was that she was convicted of murder.
Ladies, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you.
Love being here. I'm excited about it. I can't wait to get it started.
Judy, I want to read a section from your incredible book, When the Light Finds Us. I had to make sure my mother knew the truth. The dingy gas station restroom door had barely closed behind us when I collapsed into my mother's arms, sobs racking my body. Mother, I gasped between tears. There's been a murder. The words tumbled out. Harry, the gun, the plan to flee to Alaska. My mother's eyes widened in shock, her grip on my wrist tightening. I couldn't leave without telling you, I whispered. I don't want you to think I abandoned you all and my children. Please tell Angel and Chip how much I love them. Tears welled into my mother's eyes as she fumbled for a tissue. I asked for a paper and pen. With shaking hands, I scribbled a note for my children, pressing it into her palm. Make sure they know I love them. Judy, do you remember what that felt like at that moment?
Yes, I do. I can feel it at this moment. It's one of those memories I'll never forget. It was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my entire life. Probably even harder than going to prison. Was knowing I would leave them, and I honestly didn't think I'd ever be back. I thought this would be my death, my end. But I wanted them to know how much I loved them.
Angel, did you ever see that note that your mother wrote?
No, I didn't. My grandma made sure that I knew how much my mother loved me, though. She always encouraged me, stood by me, and would tell me, don't give up, don't give up. She'll be back.
Yeah.
When your mom disappeared unknowingly,
Yeah.
and in the horror, taken to Alaska literally as a hostage, what were you told by your grandmother when your mom never came home?
You know, it was so confusing. It really was. And it was a blessing in some ways, like God protected us, because I went back to the exact same home that I'd grown up in. So I was surrounded by friends that I'd known since I was 3 to 5 years old, you know, so it was familiar again, you know, and they really didn't tell me what happened. I had no clue. They just said, your mom's gone. She has to leave. And, you know, we don't know when she's coming back. My dad told me, actually, he's like, you're going to stay here and live here. And at first I was really angry. I was like, no, I don't want to live with you. I want my mom. But it wasn't an option. And so we just, you know, we always would look around, me and my best friend, and be like, we knew something was different. So we'd be like, somebody watching us? Is somebody following us? You know how teenagers, you know, big imaginations. We knew something was wrong, but we didn't know what.
This discussion is very personal to me as well. Years ago, I was falsely accused of something I didn't do. I was arrested and I was jailed wrongly. The judge dismissed the charges and expunged the record from the bench, saying that you can now say that this never happened.
Yeah.
But it did. And the damage was done.
Right.
My children held it against me. They would say, Mom said you were arrested. Mom said you were in jail. And so I wasn't just erased on paper.
Exactly.
I was really erased in their eyes. And because my ex told this one side of story, that version stuck. And I now really live on that, in that ache every day, in the thread of the hope that they will one day find out the truth. And so maybe someday I'll be sitting down with my children like you two are sitting down today.
Yes.
You know, it's funny that you mention that because I have a son that I seldom talk about at this moment.
Chip.
Yes, because he is at that stage where we haven't connected that well. And he has a lot of anger. And before I came, I hadn't spoken to him, nor text him since last October, I guess it was. And he wished me well. Mom, I wish we were with you. I'm sorry that things have went how they are. But then last night, and I told him, I said, son, I love you, and I'm hoping that we can get this together, and we can always start again. And then last night, when I got back to the hotel, I received the most hateful, mean text from him, and so he's still very angry.
He is. He feels abandoned, because he was an abandoned little boy. He didn't ask for that. He didn't have a part of it. And then he grew up listening to, like, your ex-wife had said things. Well, my dad, I love him and I want to honor him because I appreciate what he did for me and my brother. But at the same time, he was very angry and, would say, she's never coming home. You need to get over it, and things like that, and hateful, mean things. And he grew up knowing that, whereas I grew up knowing who my mother really was. I knew her personality, and he can't remember that. He told me the other day he doesn't have any memories of her, which made me really sad because I thought, Lord, please don't let anything ever happen to me and David, because I want my grandkids to know me, and to have those memories, because I think that's the biggest struggle. And then he sees our relationship, and it's strong and it's close, but we fostered it. And that's what I try to tell him. I put the time and the effort into it, and he can too, but he's got to heal from within.
Judy, and I was wondering, now that you mentioned that, what the difference is. I have 3 biological children with my ex. When this happened, one of them was a teenager, and one of them was 4 years old. I haven't hugged.
What a coincidence.
Right? I haven't hugged or kissed that 4-year-old in 5 years. She's 9 now. And I was sharing last night with someone that I was thinking that this may be very well the vision of what that future may look like for me, where my teenager could give me an opportunity, because she had so many years with me before our divorce and before the accusations and everything. But for my little one, Jaggy, that may look something different. Chip, up to 5 years old, was allowed to see you.
Yes.
And then after 5, your ex cut those visitations off for him.
Yes.
Until he was 16 or change, and drove himself to prison to come see you.
Correct.
Whereas Angel never let go of those visits and the contact. Do you think that's the difference there?
I absolutely do, because she got to know me before I ever became incarcerated, and we were close then. And she never let that go. She nurtured it from afar, and I nurtured it from afar, and we found our common ground to where we could continue that bond and not ever let it be severed, no matter what the price was. But then, too, I look back and I think, whenever I had her, her father wasn't there for the delivery. He was out with other women.
Right.
And so I think right at birth, we formed a special bond that she didn't even know about, until she got older, and we continued that bond. But it was always just her and I always loved and cherished her because she was something that I knew would be kind to me and good to me.
Yeah, you write about how your ex had disappeared for almost maybe even over a week, and he was out drinking and doing that thing. And when you had your son, where Angel was somewhat different in that. And Angel, I'm wondering, was there ever any moment where you questioned what you were being told about your mom? Did you ever hold it against her that she was in prison? I mean, at a young age, was there any doubt in your mind? And how did that play into the fact that there was a jury who found your mother guilty wrongfully?
Yeah, right.
Albeit there was some people who said this happened.
Yeah.
And then the people closest to you, including in your faith, said this is not. Where were you with this dichotomy?
It was so hard. I mean, the day I heard the news that she was convicted, I never got to go to the trial. I went to her tanning salon actually with a worker, is where I was. And I was told, she's coming home. Don't worry. She's coming home. It'll all be okay. And I actually had called the radio station and requested, I don't know if you remember this song, This Dates Me, but Endless Love for my mom. And I said, Judy Henderson. And they were like, what? Who'd you say? And I said, Judy Henderson. And they said, oh. And then the next thing I heard was that she was convicted of murder. And I just remember crying. And that was the point where I was like, what? Like, I felt like I was lied to at that moment because I thought she was coming home, And I really even, like, through my mom and dad's marriage, I just wanted to be with my mom. She was my safe person. I felt like she's always been such an encourager to me and has always stood by my side, and you can do this. And so at that time I was devastated and thought, how am I going to do this without her? But after that, after I figured out that we're going to have to figure out a new relationship, a new way forward, right? I never doubted her innocence, and I started holding it closer to my heart. Like, I would know, I had best friends that I did everything with that never knew where she was. I didn't tell people. I just said, I'm going to go visit my mom. And they always thought, that's weird. She never comes to visit you, but I didn't want them ever to think of my mom in a bad way. And so I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want them to judge her and think badly of her. And so until I went on a missions trip and had to expose myself in order to do the mission, and I was like, oh, if I can talk about myself, I can talk about my mom. And so then when I started sharing, it was like a breath of fresh air because people didn't judge her like I thought they would, and they embraced it and was like, how can we help you? This is wrong. So I probably, holding it in my heart might not have been good, but it was a safe place for my, teenage and 20s.
Judy, so you're in prison in Missouri. I think you were seeing your family about twice a month. And then in some incredibly cruel and added cruelty to your whole story of injustice, shipped off to Arizona. And then now you can see family twice a year. And so those visits changed.
Yes.
And you describe each of these visits as like a bittersweet reminder of what you lost. And you share how these phone calls, particularly with Angel, that you would try to distill a lifetime of motherly wisdom into those conversations.
Correct. Yes.
And so now you're sentenced to life in prison for a crime you did not commit. What are some of the rituals, the ways that helped you connect with your daughter? And, what was parenting look like now for you behind those walls?
Oh, wow. I look back and I think, how did I do that? You never know what you can do until you're put in that situation and walk through it. And it's just a minute-by-minute process. I always, during my incarceration, wanted her to feel proud, regardless of where I was, and it was in a bad place where I had to live. I never wanted her to worry, so I tried to protect her there, and also my family. But I wanted her to know I'm getting educated, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm a fitness trainer now. I love the dogs. And I wanted her to be proud of, even though I was defined as an inmate by society and the lowest class of society, that I was still going to reach goals. I was still going to move forward in my life. And regardless of the world I was in, you can still be successful. And so I tried to be the citizen in there that I was out on the street, and I wanted to still be that example for her. Continue your education, and she did. She's brilliant. She's just brilliant. I can't say anything more other than she truly is the angel that I named her. And I think when she was born, I didn't know what I was going to name her. And I think God just came and said, Angel, you don't know, but you're going to need an angel. And he sent me her. So
you taught her cooking.
Yeah.
You had conversations over sex
Yes.
and relationships. You always seemed to call at the exact moment that Angel needed you.
Yes.
For you too, help me describe, what did that, the mothering look like? How did you end up mothering her in your own way when you can't embrace physically and connect face to face?
I think, I for one, I believe in visualization, evidently, because I had a vision board. But I felt like, even through the phone, I could embrace her. I could use a certain tone, or I could use certain words, and I wanted her to feel the warmth and know, that I'm there. I'm there, even in spirit. I'm right beside you no matter what. And whenever she would come to visit, you could only have a hug coming in and a hug going out. That was the rules. And so it was very hard not to just grab her and sit her on my lap. And, no matter if she was 20, 30, it didn't matter to me. And but I always wanted her to feel that there was always that connection, and that I would love her with every breath I would take. And I will do that till the day I die. She's my pride and joy, and I don't know that I could ever survive without her.
What about you, Angel? What did that look like in parenting and for you?
Well, it's just funny how God works things out, because whenever any major thing happened, she always would call, always. Even the things that I didn't want to tell a parent, she would just call, and I'd be like, I got to tell her, this is meant to be. So I would tell her, or when I would struggle, even with my kid's dad, we had an abusive relationship. And, you know, she's the one that gave me the inspiration to get out of that relationship. And, you know, she just happened to call at the right time when I was crying and upset because of an incident. And she's like, well, I guess your kids are just going to grow up just like you. And I was like, what? No, they're not. And that was it. Like, she had a way of talking to me where I think that since she wasn't there, I actually listened. That she probably could have been right there and I wouldn't have listened. I would have pushed back and been that rebellious teenager. But we didn't have that relationship where I could tell her whatever it was because I knew she wasn't going to ground me or I wasn't going to get in trouble. And my dad didn't really talk. So she was safe to share my most intimate details with. And then she would just listen. And then the advice she gave me was really good advice, you know. And sometimes I listened and sometimes I didn't. But when I didn't, I realized I should have. And so, like, that built faith and trust, you know. And so I would look at people around me and they had moms there. And, you know, and sometimes my heart would sink and I would think, I wish I could go shopping with my mom, you know, or I would see them treat their moms bad and I would be like, oh, I wish I had my mom because I wouldn't treat her like that. But her not being there made me appreciate her and cherish our conversations. So.
Yeah, it's so interesting because having parents, obviously.
Yeah.
And being a parent.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a lot of patience and you just run out of that patience or it's short answers because life takes over and it's like, just because I said so, you know, and that's not really the answer that our kids need, but sometimes that's the best we can give. But in your circumstance, you just had time.
Yeah,
and
I did.
You didn't have that life pressure, and in a way, you could hear your mom differently.
Yeah,
because it landed differently, as opposed to how sometimes we don't have the ability to just really be conscious about our parenting. Right. And, you know, you probably, I imagine after a conversation would have a night to think about it.
Yes.
And you couldn't get grounded.
Yeah, I could be honest. And I think that's funny that you say that because I think that played such a huge part. And you could just have that raw, honest, talking to your best friend relationship without the barrier of that we have in our homes raising kids. Like it made us closer. And it was weird when she came home, you know, because it's like, I'm supposed to be talking to you on the phone. Like it's weird to tell you deep personal things face to face, you know, because that's even more vulnerable because you can say a lot more over a phone that you probably wouldn't even say, you know, to a person to their face.
Well, I got to tell you an incident whenever I was talking to her on the phone and she told me some details about her life and I just started crying. And one of our female sergeants walked by and saw me crying. And then whenever we hung up, she didn't know who I was talking to or what was going on. So she calls me down to her office and she said, Judy, are you all right? She said, I've never seen you upset like this. And I said, yes, I'm fine. I said, I was just talking to my daughter and we were having some, you know, serious heart-to-heart conversations and it just got emotional. So, you know, I mean, it was nice to know that there was somebody in the prison system at that time that recognized, you know, that there was a sadness and a vulnerability there and was concerned about it. So... yeah, we did have some very good conversations.
Following jail, I went into rehab. And I remember when I was leaving rehab, the head therapist came up to me and she said, Judd, if you want to find sustainable happiness, deep joy in your life, You won't find it from things. You won't find it from the smell of the leather from a Ferrari. Mm-hmm. You'll find it in doing service for others. And so when I left, I moved to Newport, California, and I would start to go to Balboa Pier and Newport Pier, where there was a lot of homeless to gather. Mm-hmm. And each night I would bring them food, but a lot of people would bring them food. So I contacted the police department, and they actually had a liaison for the homeless, and they said, bring them socks and underwear and bring the women feminine products. And so I would go to Target or Walmart and buy all this stuff and then go hand it out. And in your book, you say, that night I penned another letter to Angel. I realized a profound truth. Our deepest healing often comes through service to others. In easing the pain of fellow inmates, I found a balm for my wounds, a way to give meaning to my suffering. No, I couldn't be there to guide Angel through adolescence, but I could show her through my actions, even from afar, the power of resilience and compassion. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most important lesson a mother could teach.
Yes.
I get a little emotional myself because I keep holding on to the fact that even though my children have been alienated from me and they were told things at such a young age that they shouldn't have known.
Correct.
And that if I keep doing the work, if I keep showing up as the best version of myself, the best version of a dad, feeding the homeless, mentoring the downtrodden, speaking to prisons and working with other men, that maybe, just maybe, that's the most important lesson I could show them. How true is that for you, Judy? And how important is the Patch program?
The Patch program was very important, and that is very true, what you just said, because it was, I wanted her to know, helping others is going to be so rewarding for yourself, not maybe monetarily, because being a social worker or helping in that field is not the best pay, which it should be, because you're helping human beings, and that's what God created us to do, was to help each other. But to show her that, I already felt, as she was growing up, she was already, compassionate about certain things about her friends. She always had best friends, and they all loved her. And so having that compassion that I knew that she already had, and just watching her, she nurtured it. And letting her know that even in prison, I was a prison mom also, with new young lifers that would come in. I would take them under my wing, or some that maybe didn't not do that much time. They didn't have mothers. And so I was able to mother them. And I wanted to do it in a way that I would mother my own daughter. And so that's what I did. And as you know, my daughter is in that line of work to where she also helps others now, and mothers and babies. And I couldn't be more proud. And I think it started when she was young, knowing. And her grandmother was always like that. She drove a Cadillac, wore dresses and high heels, and she would drive that Cadillac on railroad tracks and underneath bridges to take food and clothing to the downtrodden and the homeless. And as a matter of fact, as you know, in my book, one of her families that she did take care of ended up being a hitman that was sent to kill me years later.
He decided not to kill you because once he knew who you were,
yes,
he spared your life because your mother helped him when he was at his low point.
Yes. And he had a picture. She had a picture of me in her salon, in her shop, and he just asked me while he was sitting there at the table with the gun with the silencer on it, "Is your mother Tessie Hines?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Today, I'm not going to kill you." And I just looked at him, and he said, "When my family and I came to this town, we were homeless. We had no food. We didn't have any clothing except what was on our back. And your mother made sure that we had clothes and fed us."
That is God's work.
Yes. Mm-hmm. He knew in advance what I was going to be going through, what I was going to face. And he used her as the vessel to save my life, my mother.
Well, and it just shows you that in the small things that we do that seem small are so big to others. You know, a word of encouragement, a hot meal, warm socks to wear. You just never know.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, you never know how that person is going to impact your life. You're hoping you're impacting theirs and you're giving them a hands up and not just leaving them stuck in that situation. You know, you want them to have a good foundation. You want them to be able to build on that and have a successful life and family and job. And so I think that's what me and my daughter both do, you know, in different ways.
And like the patch program that you helped start,
Yes.
you know, that gave mothers and children the opportunity to have that relationship that is so hard to have behind bars, but is so important to see that your mom still loves you, you're still important to them as from a child's, you know, viewpoint. And then I'm sure as a mother to know that you can still be a mother even behind bars, like it's not over, because that's important. That, to me, I look and I'm like, statistics say that I should have went to prison, you know?
Right.
But I didn't.
Right.
And I didn't take that. I went to college. I, you know, did things on my own. And I think that's because, a large part, because I had my mother who was such a big encourager, you know, and a big part of my life, regardless of where she was at.
Right. And the PATCH program, it was a program that was designed to take children out of the prison setting, which in the visiting room, even though they came to visit their mothers, there were still officers around that could be intimidating and threatening because you had some that weren't very kind. And
It's scary, too, for a
Yes.
little kid. Like, you're looking around, the doors are slamming shut, you can't touch your parent, you know?
yes, and they don't understand that. How can you have children come to visit you and not connect with that child physically? You know, because even at a certain age, they would no longer let the children to sit on their lap, like 4 or 5 years old. And they would, it was still the hug coming in and the hug leaving. And a child needs nurturing, needs more than that with their parent. And so with the PATCH program, which meant parents and their children, it was in a trailer that was attached to the prison, you know, inside the fence. But the parents would go over there, the mothers would go over there, and just the mother and the child, no other family member. And they would have watched movies together. It was set up just like a home. Yeah. And there was no officers around. It was volunteers that was in there, you know, and we would ask the mother prior to the visit, what kind of food do you want to cook for your child? You know, what do you want to eat? What do they like? And so the mother has to talk to them then and find out, okay, what do you like to eat now? You know, and that's something that parents never ask their kids whenever they're behind walls.
Sure.
Because you're not going to take them out to eat or anything, so why does it matter? But it does matter. You know, you want to know every detail about the child. Yeah. And so we would make sure that they had those those ingredients to make that meal for them. And then they could lay on the floor and wrestle, and we had all kinds of games they could play with. We had like a yard set up where they could go outside and play, and swings, and just sit and love on them and talk with them and just laugh and have fun.
Yeah.
And so that made a big difference. Prior to them getting approved for the visits, they would have to go through parenting classes, because we wanted to ensure that they knew how to communicate, that they knew what their child's love language was. And then that way they could have a good conversation, not like, oh, have you seen so-and-so, the drug dealer, or have you, who you beat up today, or, meaningful conversations about actually what the child was going through, and understanding their emotions, and their body languages. So it wasn't just about having fun and having those visits. It was just really paying attention to that child.
Teaching them how to be a parent.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. The hitman, this fact that you started this patch program in prison, I just needed a deep breath.
Oh, thank you.
Even thinking about the fact that, to some point, I don't even know what Jaggy likes to eat or what her favorite color is. And
Right.
You lost your mother while in prison.
Yes.
Speaking of her, she never saw the day you walked free. She never found out that your innocence was acknowledged by the state and the great people of Missouri and everyone around you.
Right.
If your mother was here with us today, what would you tell her? I'm sorry we didn't get to continue making memories. But I cherish and will always carry with me in my heart all the memories we did make, all the times I would come down and get to work with you in your business, and how you taught me so much and taught me how to be a great person. And I hope you're smiling down on me now. And I know you're happy for me. And she did such a great job with Angel. Oh, my gosh. I mean, my mom was strict, but, you didn't sit on her beds, and she was pretty adamant about that.
Yeah.
You didn't wear your shoes in the house. And and she taught me to be that way, which I'm kind of anal about that a little bit, but I try not to be. But I know if she was here, she'd still be giving to the poor. She would still be doing everything that she loved to do. And she was hell on wheels.
When I think about my grandma, I think about her unwavering faith that I always thought, I want to be like that. She loved her children unconditionally, no matter what, showed them the love of Jesus, encouraged them, and believed in them, even when the odds looked like, oh yeah, that's not going to work out. She did. But she always kept me encouraged during my incarceration, and always said, Judy, you're coming home. You're coming home. Don't ever give up. And she whenever there was offenders practicing witchcraft, there was one that wanted to put a spell on me. And I didn't know. I wasn't familiar with all of that, because this was new when I first came in. And because the way I am here is the way I was there. I would always take care of myself. I would put makeup on every day. I would do my hair, wear the best creased uniform you could get. And, worked out all the time. And that they said, we just don't do that in here. And I said, but I do that in here. And you're just being phony. You're fake.
But I did it for 36 years, so they finally figured out it really was me. And now they get out and they come, they walk in where the agency where I work, and not knowing I work there, and they walk in and they say, "Oh my gosh, that's Judy Henderson. Look at her." I said, "Told you so." And but my mom would tell me when I was going through that spell of being fearful of what was going on with the witchcraft stuff that I wasn't aware of or familiar with, because she got a blot of tissue of my lipstick and hair and a shoe, and that's how she was going to cast a spell. So my mother said, "Judy, from now on, you open your Bible because the enemy hates the Word of God. And it will keep those away from you that should not be there, and those spirits." And sure enough, I did. And, well, the spell didn't work, evidently.
I'm thinking a lot about my kids right now.
Yeah.
And the fact that they only know one version of a story and what it would be like for them to know the whole story. And, Angel, you recently read your mother's book, When the Light Finds Us, and
Yes.
the book, congratulations, was released yesterday.
Thank you.
And when you read that book, I'm wondering, what was that like for you? What was the hardest parts for you?
Yeah.
I mean, you just now know the whole story.
Yeah.
Tell me about that experience.
So I didn't think I was going to read it. In fact, when she started writing it, I told her I couldn't. I was like, it's just too hard. Why would I want to read the worst day of my life, or the worst times of my life? And then as the book release approached, I thought somebody told me that I needed to know where I stood and what I was going to do, and I needed to have a plan, and I needed to let her know that, so we were on the same page of expectations, and that I probably should do the hard thing and read it. And I know that God doesn't, I always say, God doesn't take us to the easy things, He takes us to the hard things, because we can do it with Him. And so I was like, okay. And one day, just a week ago, I called her and said, "All right, I'm going to read your book." And she was like, "What? Okay, when?" I was like, "I'm going to come get it tonight after work." And when I sat down, we make this thing in our heads that it's going to be so much worse than what it is, and it is so much worse than what it is. And the enemy gets in there and he starts adding, it's going to, there's going to be things that you don't agree with, and this and that. And I believed all those lies. And when I sat down, I took a notepad and a pen, and I thought, I'm going to write down everything I don't agree with, and then I'm going to talk to her about it, so we can get it lined out before, her book launch. And I sat there. I have a notebook full of things that inspired me, that I learned about my family, that made me love my mother even more than what I do now. And it was hard. It wasn't easy, like she describes my grandma, and my grandma and I were really close. And I was like, I could just picture her right there. And it was such a different perspective, because I read all the time. And I was like, I know the characters. I know them intimately, And then the things that I didn't agree with necessarily, I realized why she felt the way she felt, why she saw things differently than I did, that it was a different perspective. I'm coming from a 13-year-old. She's coming from, a mom, a wife, a grown woman, and it just all made sense to me. And I thought, I know the next day I was going to work and I'm crying, and I thought, God, what a gift you've given me, and my family, that I have this, that I know my mom intimately more so than I thought I did before, and now I know it. And I shared with my brother, I'm like, I know that, you might not be ready right now, and I understand that. But I think that when you do read it, you'll find healing because it makes sense. It makes sense after all the incredible things that she's had to endure. And of course, that next day I was like, and if anybody messes with you, they're going to have to come through me because you've lived through enough. Like you deserve love and happiness and joy, and I knew hard parts, but just, and how do you sum up your life in 250 pages? But she did a wonderful job at giving us a glimpse of what life is like before, during, and after.
You never gave up that identity, though, as a mother, right? And
No.
we're gonna get you back in the studio. We're gonna talk about the murder and how you ended up in prison and all of the wild stories that not only led you there, but kept you there, the experiences there. But this is about alienation. This is about how not only parents and sometimes grandparents or people can alienate our children from us. Sometimes walls and razor wire can do that. Correct. Through situations. And it gives me hope someday that I won't be erased as a father. And I'm wondering where you found that courage, right? When so many people saw you as a criminal, a number, a murderer, but you kept seeing yourself as a mother. How did you hold on to that identity?
Because I knew the truth, and I was going to fight for the truth to be known. And I had a strong mother that defined motherhood for me. And I wanted to be just like her. I wanted to have that unconditional love that she had. And I was able to do that because of the deep love that I had for my children. And for me, that was not something I was going to give up no matter what the situation was, how dark it might look. I refused to allow that situation to deter me from being what I was created to be, and that was her mother and my son's mother. And even though I do not have that relationship with him yet, yes, I think it will come eventually, and I just have to be patient. And just like you being a father, you're not giving up your fatherhood. There's just space between the things that you will know about them, but you will grow into that, and they will grow into that, and they will want to know. And writing a book about what your life has been about what your situation was, is something that would give them a glimpse into where you were. Because I think our kids know, my mom's not perfect. Angel, I made mistakes. I was willing to be vulnerable and say.
You still do. I try to tell you, you need to read page 130 of your book. And because I think that parents think, I think kids think that parents think that they're perfect, and we aren't. And we need to let our kids know, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I made a mistake. And I'm here. I'm open for you to ask me anything you want to ask me. I don't care what it is. And, have that kind of depth and foundation with them instead of being like superficial and I'm the parent, I have all the authority. You have no say. Yes, they do. They're human beings and they're little adults right now. But help them get to know who you really are.
You remind me that parenting doesn't end with a courtroom ruling. It doesn't end behind a prison wall. And it doesn't even end with the absence of your own child's voice, right? And
Correct.
it lives in the faith that someday the light finds us. And our truth will speak louder than those lies. You literally manifested your freedom, right? So
Yes.
I read that 24 years into your sentence, you're watching Oprah on the TV in the prison, and she was talking about a book called The Secret, right, which fascinated you, and you heard about a vision board.
Yes.
And so, which is this collage of your dreams.
Yes.
And you made one the next day, right? And
I
you
did.
write on the top of it, freedom from prison, home with family, sentence overturned and pardoned. And you wrote in your book, that night in your cell, in the darkness, you ran your fingers over the photos you placed on that board, writing them to become reality. I'm coming home, I whispered to Angel's and Chip's smiling faces. I promise.
Yes.
Do you think there's always a moment like the one you're having for the two of you now? Do you believe that's possible for a parent like me? That us parents who have lost our children in various ways, we can manifest that back?
Yes. You just have to believe it. I believe, and God proved it in the very beginning in Genesis. He spoke the words and there was light. He said, let there be light, and there was light. And so that right there, that in the very, very beginning of what was written should tell everybody, should tell the world, your words have power. You create what you want your life to be. Because that creation and that acknowledgement of it is going to manifest that power that you need, that God already gave you from the beginning of your birth. He gave us everything we would ever need for the entire time of our living here on this earth and whatever situation we'd have to face. So we don't have to keep praying for more strength, because then if you do, he's just going to give you more trials or allow you to go through more trials. Thank you, my stepfather, for telling me that. While I was incarcerated, I learned it, and I believe it, and I stand on it. So yes, I don't think it's ever too late to manifest what kind of a relationship you want with your children. Say it, believe it, write it down, look at their pictures, tell them, because whenever God said, let there be light, there was light. Whenever he spoke, he manifested miracles. So he didn't have to lay hands on anybody. He already had the power, and he gave us the same powers that he has. And we just have to believe we have those gifts.
Yeah.
So use them, people. Don't let them sit there and rust.
In my office, I have a picture that I drew, stick figures, me holding the hands of my children and their sizes and their names below it. And it just says, I love you, Daddy. And I never thought about, just like until this very moment, that drawing is my manifestation, vision board of that moment.
Yes, absolutely, it is. Now, make it come to pass.
Angel, there is a Jewish cemetery in St. Louis that had been vandalized.
Yes.
And you say in the book that you knew you had to go there.
Yeah.
And where you were living, you drove 4.5 hours to be there. And the governor of Missouri had organized, he was Jewish.
Yeah.
And so the whole state took this very personally, particularly him.
Yeah.
And so he organized this cleanup of this hate crime. But that wasn't quite your intent to go there. And
No.
when you went there, Judy, you write about this moment where the governor of Missouri is there, even the vice president of the United States shows up, right? And so there's this wall of Secret Service and police and suits with earpieces surrounding these guys. And in your unstoppable way, you push through this wall.
Yeah.
and you say to the governor, you have to help my mom.
Yeah.
She was committed of a crime. She was convicted of a murder she didn't commit.
Yeah.
And her clemency was on your desk.
Yeah.
And you have to look at it. And you described this governor that you felt that he listened. He heard you to understand you. And your mother was quite overwhelmed with the enormity of when you told her about that on the phone.
It's like, wow.
What was it when you see this moment and you say that you just like a calling to go there?
Yeah.
What was that?
You know, I had tried to see governors so many times and went to different things because she needed to come home. And that morning I was supposed to go to Jeff City where he was, normally. And then it was just strange because I got an email that I'd never received an email from the governor's office. And I opened up my email before I went to go ahead to Jeff City and saw that, oh no, this terrible crime had happened and they were going to the Jewish cemetery. And so I was like, no, I have to go there. I have to go there and see him. And so I told my boss at the time, I was like, I'm sorry, but I can't go to Jeff City. I have to go to the cemetery. And he's like, yes, you do. Because my intent was when I went there, I was going to stop by the governor's office. I figured I probably wouldn't be able to see him because usually they stop you and you talk to somebody else. But I was like, this is my chance. Like, he's going to be out in the open. Like, he can't avoid me, But when I got there, there was so many people because the vice president was there. That I was like, well, God, I thought that I was going to be able to finally break through. And I was like, but you know what? I'm here. I'll just pull up my sleeves and go to work. I met some people and we cleaned up the cemetery. And I was like, I guess this was what I was meant to do. And then I turn around and see this big group of people. And I'm like, what's going on there? Well, the vice president had left and he had went back out to thank everybody himself. And I was like, I'm going to go talk to him now. Thank you, Jesus. I was just meant to help do my part. And then he opened the door for me to have that blessing to be able to speak to Governor Greitens. But I walked up and he was just surrounded. And I thought, okay, here I go. And I would take a step and there'd be a parting. And I'd take another step and there'd be a parting. And I mean, it was like that all the way. I didn't have to push. I didn't have to even say, excuse me. It was just like, it just opened up. And the next thing I know, I was standing right there and I reached out and shook his hand and started talking to him. And somebody else started to interrupt and he said, wait a minute. And he looked me straight in the eye and we had this conversation in this moment that I knew in my heart. And I was like, this might sound crazy, but I know that he heard me. Like for the first time in 35 years at that time, like I was heard and I felt like he received it and was going to actually do something about it. And that was probably my moment of most hope that I was like, no, this is happening. This is real.
It's like the sea parted.
Yes. That's what
It was so crazy because I just walked right through and was like, all right. And then he just received it so well. And he was so intent to look in my eyes, to hear what I had to say. And he says that, yep, he remembers that,
Did
that
you take
moment.
a picture? Didn't you guys?
Yeah, we took a picture because I think he's told me, you want a picture? And I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and sure enough, December 20th, 2017.
Yeah.
Slowly, as if your vision board comes true.
Yes.
There, standing before you in prison, is the governor of Missouri,
Yes.
who says to you,
I get chills.
me too,
Yeah.
on the great state of Missouri and the people of Missouri, we owe you an apology.
Yes.
And this is something that should have been corrected many, many years ago.
Yes.
So after 13,149 days, over 315,000 hours in prison. Your freedom was an immediate reality.
Yes.
He gets out of the way, right? And as if on cue, here comes Angel
Yes.
and your other family to greet you, including your children.
Yeah.
Can you describe that feeling?
Oh my gosh. I think we just fell into each other's arms, didn't we?
Yeah.
And started crying and was crying and laughing and crying. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, who laughs and cries at the same time?
You know, there's a little funny story that before that happened.
Oh my gosh.
I knew
know what you're gonna say.
was coming on, what was going to happen the next day, but the governor's office, you know, said, "Can you keep a secret? Will you please not say anything?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely." There's still people to this day that are mad at me because I didn't tell them. And I was like,
I lost friends because of it.
I was like, "I'm sorry, but when he says to keep a secret, I'm keeping a secret."
Including Shannon, the attorney.
Yeah.
She was notified the day before as well.
Yeah.
Right? And said, you gotta keep this a secret.
Yeah. And so so she called and I said something like, well, you know, we always hope at that time, at Christmas time, that she's going to come home. You know, every Christmas is like that for people that have loved ones incarcerated and have a clemency. But I was like, she said she wasn't going to get ready the next day. And I said, oh, I think you probably should. Like, why wouldn't you get ready? Like, you never know, Mom. And she's like, no, they're not going to do it. It's a Tuesday. They're not going to do it on a Tuesday. You know?
I was a fitness trainer, so I had classes to teach. And, you know, and I thought, well, I'm going to get ready to teach classes and go to the gym.
To tell her, and she didn't listen.
And she asked me, she said, I remember her saying
But I
this.
couldn't tell her.
Yeah, she said, oh, by the way, Mom, do you still have that waterproof mascara that you said you were saving for when you get released? I said, well, yeah. And she said, well, listen, I got to go. And I thought, well, that was short.
Yeah, I couldn't talk to her
Right.
because I was like, oh, this is too hard.
Right.
This is way too hard.
And she hung up. And I thought, well, that was an odd conversation. And then I called Shannon to see if she had heard anything.
Attorney, yeah.
And Shannon is a talker. You know, she's an attorney. She's a talker. And you know, my mother was a talker, so of course I'm a talker. So our conversations were never short. And so I'm talking to her. She said, you know what, Judy? She said, I looked at my clock. She said, I got to go. I've got a meeting I have to go to.
Yeah.
And it's like, this
We
is
couldn't
really
talk
weird.
to her.
Nobody wants to talk to me tonight.
No.
Okay, that's fine. I don't want to talk to anybody either. So I just went to my cell and got ready for bed that night and got up the next morning and went to the gym. And
Little did you know your life was about to change.
I had no idea. And of course, whenever I do certain, fitness classes, I don't wear a lot of makeup because we're sweating a lot. We're doing heavy aerobics or Zumba or something. And so then I had to go to the clinic. And over at the clinic, I had to get a mammogram. And the officer come in there and told me, Judy, you know, you've got to go to the visiting room. And I said, no, I don't. I don't have a visit today. They said, your attorney's here. I said, no, they're not. You have the wrong Henderson. I'm not going. And because she knew not to come without letting me know, because I do hair, I do makeup and all that. I'm not going to the visiting room.
She wouldn't come out and visit you if she didn't have
Dolled
hair,
up.
makeup on, which I get it. I would too.
Yeah, so that was an issue there.
She got
and
to meet the governor like natural.
Yeah, and so they were going to put me in the hole if I didn't go, and I said, I'm going. I'm going. Am I there yet? So, yeah, that was kind
It
of
was
strange.
so amazing, though. That moment was the
Very
most
shocking.
amazing moment. And he was so genuine, too. Like, he came and he went to every single person that we brought with us, every family member, and apologized for the injustice that we had to live through, you know. And
What a great man.
Yeah.
He was. And I hope that you will meet him.
Yeah, he was a great man.
And I told him one of my concerns was I didn't want the media there because I'd never done anything with the media during my incarceration.
Right.
And he said, Judy, he said, you know, this is not about me. It's not about what I'm doing for you. He said, it's about you and your family today.
Yeah.
And I already told everybody, no press.
In fact, I think he said, let me get out of the way.
Yes.
He did.
And I've done enough talking. There's some other people who need to see you.
Yes.
Yes. That gives me chills whenever I hear that, because it was such a tender moment. You know, it's like something that you pray for 36 years. And then all of a sudden, here it is. Like you're standing there and like get to walk out with my mom for the first time, you know? And
well, it was hard for me to believe whenever he said today, and he read the papers to me.
Immediate release.
Immediate release. I said, what? Can you say that again?
Yeah.
And
you
he
mean
said,
like right now?
Yeah. I said, you mean right now? And he said, right now,
Not a
you are
minute
leaving. And I just gasped, you know, and then the warden came in and we arranged for me to go back to the yard and say goodbye to everybody. And it was like, oh my gosh, there was 1,600 women there and they were all on the yard, all the staff, all the, you know, officers, everybody.
And didn't they tell you, like, we're going to keep this low key? And then when she walked out, everybody was cheering and she's like, all right, plan B.
Yeah. They said, can you walk down here to the yard and be very nonchalant because we want to keep this quiet? And I said, sure. So we get halfway down and everybody's screaming and hollering. And I looked at each of them and I said, okay, that's not going to work. What's plan B? They said, let's just go for it.
Right? Outwalk not one governor, but two. As
Right.
They called you in prison, right? You know, and there's just so many great stories about how cute, really tender moments with your own granddaughter, how, you know, you went to go use the phone once and now you're using a cell phone and how much life has changed, right? And and you're like, where are the dials? There are no dials.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, Grandma, you just have to tap the screen. And, you know, but Angel, you got into a relationship that was abusive.
Yes.
Your first husband, Angel's dad, was abusive.
Correct.
Your father was abusive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you talk about how you redrew your family map, that each interaction at home was a creation of new boundaries and a new balance, and that you often found this, that there was this, in fact, in a time in prison, therapy, right? You write that you mapped out the cycle that you had been stuck in. Quote, tension, explosion, honeymoon phase, repeat. I'm wondering for the both of you, we often hear so much about generational trauma. And it's incredible that you literally ended up in your mother's relationship.
Right.
And that you ended up in your mother's and your grandmother's
Yes.
relationship. But that now the cycle breaks.
That's it.
Your daughter will not be in that relationship. What does it take to break the cycle?
Oh, I think it just takes strength, determination, and a strong spiritual foundation for you to understand and know what the cycle is, what it even means, because a lot of battered women don't even know they're in a cycle. They're rewired, and that wiring is just what they're conditioned to know, to believe, because they've been in it for so long, and so is their mother, their grandmothers. And it takes determination and wanting a change.
And I think for me personally, like the phone call that I received when me and my kid's father, you know, had an incident and I was crying, he was gone, my kids are crying, and my mom calls and says, well, I guess your kids are just going to grow up the same as you did. That was like, no, it stops here. And as hard as it's going to be, I've got to do this. Not because I hated him, and I had to understand that we weren't good together. He's good with somebody else, and he's a good person, but we were bad together. And that I could go on, and he could still be the father of my children, because he wasn't abusive to my children at all and stuff, but I didn't have to be in abusive relationships like my parents, like my grandparents. And I wasn't going to let my kids go through that, because that was a horrible way to live. It was scary. It was, for lack of better words, just so traumatic that I thought, no way, why would I do that to them when I have the power to change that? It's going to be hard, but I can do it. I don't have a mom. My dad didn't talk to me. Their dad wasn't going to help and stuff. But I was like, but you know what? I got through my mom going to prison and survived that. Like, you can survive anything.
It takes someone strong enough to say, no more.
No more.
Not me, not my daughter, and not our generations any longer.
It's over.
You, Judy, had stuck in that marriage, one which was a forced marriage almost essentially, right? And the fact that you were looking, even there was a moment you were pushed down the stairs pregnant with Angel, where you described protecting your tummy and having Chip, thinking maybe if I have another child, things will change, as we often do.
Yes.
Right? Maybe the love will be there, or there's a moment of tenderness and love, and let me see if I can explore that any further. And you saying, no more, not again, not in our life generations any further.
No. Yeah.
Judy, if you could speak to a parent right now who is separated from their child or children, not by their parents' own choice, but by systems or injustice, and if they're alienated like mine are, and they're growing up angry and upset, and they don't quite want to welcome us back yet, you're experiencing still with your son differently than you have with Angel.
Correct.
And I think it's so true for so many of us parents who have gone through divorces and difficult relationships and breakups that involve kids, right? What do you say to me and us parents to hold on to that hope that they will finally find us?
And they will finally find you. You just have to be patient. Let them grow into who they are, and always let them know in some fashion that you love them. You're always going to be here for them no matter what. Whatever type of communication you may be able to extend to them in whatever fashion, if it's through your other child that you are connected with, that, and I wish I would have done that better. That's where I think I failed during my incarceration with my son. It was hard to buck up against my ex-husband because he had all the power. I had no control other than sending letters, which I did do, and Angel would try to communicate some of those to my son. But if you're out here in this world and you have that opportunity to do little things that, if they have school activities or something that I don't know if you can pop into or go to, some form of just letting them know that you love them unconditionally, no matter what they've done, what they do in the future, what they are doing right now. It's okay because you're not perfect either.
Well,
there was a few things I do on my end, such as talking about it.
yes.
Yes, that's good.
Sharing the pain, but also the love that I have for them and have never lost.
Yes.
I journal about it, and I write them letters. Every
That's what I was
birthday,
gonna
I
say.
buy a cupcake or whatever I knew their last favorite food was. And
Yes.
I'll make a video and I'll sing happy birthday to them so that one day, not
Yes.
only my words, I can show them
Yes.
I never stopped loving you.
Yes. 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 That's
never
exactly.
give up. Like,
Right.
just never give up hope, because, 36 years, we didn't give up hope,
Well, that's what I wonder for you on the
Yeah.
other side of it. What do you tell a child or
Yeah.
even adult children who are listening right now and wondering, is it worth holding on to the hope
Yes.
to connect with my parent again?
It is. It really is. I can't imagine my life without my mother. So for me, it was an easy thing to decide to do. But for those that it's not so easy, maybe their parents have made some bad decisions and are continuing to. First of all, I say pray. Pray for them. Pray that God shines his light of truth in their heart so that they can open their eyes and receive his wisdom and his guidance to help get them to become the person that God created them to be. And then to pray and ask God to help them to find a way to build that bridge and that relationship. Relationships are hard no matter what or who it is, Like, it takes work and it takes effort. And sometimes life is messy, but the more you put out, the more work you do on yourself. You can only control what you can control, and do that. And then pray and give the rest to God and let God work it out, because he's a faithful God and he will do it. It might not be in our timing. It usually never is, actually, in our timing, or even in the way that we think it will, but it's always better, and it does come around. It will work out, and there will be restoration.
As we wrap up this sacred conversation that we've had, and that I feel so blessed and honored to host the first conversation, right, the two of you are having about this book, and that you manifested this moment, right? Your freedom, the clemency, being with your family, the release of the book, your story. This is your first time in New York City.
Yes.
And finally the world hearing your voice. And, but that wasn't the only thing on that vision board. There was something else, right? And there was a beach with white sand.
Yes.
There was a glass bottom boat.
Yes.
There was that turquoise water calling your name.
Correct.
And you didn't just manifest freedom. You literally manifested so much that, in honor of your story and your resilience, and for the moment that you've allowed me to share with you and to the world, you and Angel are going to Anguilla. I'll be covering a 4-night, 5-day stay for the two of you. You'll fly from Missouri to St. Martin, where you'll be taking a short 20-minute boat to the island of Anguilla. You'll be staying at the Aurora Aguila Resort. And yes, there will be a glass bottom boat tour.
Oh my
You'll see
goodness.
sea turtles and coral reefs.
No way.
Oh, yes way. And everything you've dreamed of, because after 36 years of being separated, I think you deserve the time together. And you've given the world so much light that I think it's time for you to soak some of it in. And I'll be sending the both of you to Anguilla.
Oh my gosh. How can we ever thank you?
Oh my goodness.
You've already done that. Thank you so much for coming on the
You're
show.
such a kind person.
Oh my gosh.
you.
And this is the first duo we have done together. And I'm so glad, evidently, that it was with you.
No, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that is, a big, huge blessing. Oh my gosh. I'm just like,
You
I don't know what to
manifested it
say.
all. Congratulations on your book, When the Light Finds Us. Congratulations on your freedom. And God bless you both.
Oh,
You
thank you.
too.
God bless you.
And
I'm
never give
serious.
up.
Right. We want pictures of you and your children together.
Yeah. You
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank
will
you so
happen.
much for coming.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Coming up, this season finale. I'll share my deepest takeaways from Judy's journey, what it teaches about injustice, resilience, and the power of never losing faith. Don't forget to subscribe to stay with us for this series. Stay blessed.